Guys, Ben Paints here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are taking part in the second round of the SRK Championship, and this time we are over at Herefordshire Raceway, a track that I did in September last year in the wet, and this time we are competing in the drive for a little bit more at stake, and I was really excited to get involved in this one. Now, to my mistake, we were supposed to have a nice little vlog here at the start, midway through and at the end of the video, but as I'm editing I've accidentally deleted those bits of footage off my computer entirely, so I'm just going to run over a few of the things and sort of the rundown for the day as we're going around in practice here. So before we do, if you are new here, could you please hit the subscribe button, or if you haven't already, could you hit it, as it really does help me out. And if you do enjoy this video, could you leave a like? If you don't enjoy it, you could also leave a downvote on the video. I really don't mind, it all helps. So jumping into sort of the format for the day, it's very akin to the same at Castle Combe in the first round, where we have 3 heats predetermined. So as I'm in SRK2, it means I move around the grid much like the SRK1 guys, so obviously 2 different tiers are in and amongst each other the whole time, and this is then followed by a consequent final. So before we get in, I did start the first heat in 3rd place. The second heat I was taking part in, I started in 12th place, which is at the back of the grid, and in the 3rd heat I would be starting in 5th position. So as we jump into the footage anyway, we have gone round on our first couple of laps there. We've overtaken one of the teammates on our team, Jordan Moore, and we're just looking to try and put in the best lap time we possibly can. Now, the lap times are around accurate, however I didn't have any exact lap times that I did on the day, so we're going to be working with the timer for this one, which is a little bit off, but it's still roughly around the same time. I know that my best lap time in practice was a 34.854 second lap, I believe, which did actually put me in the top 15 times of all the drivers that were out on track. So a little spoiler, but if the lap time doesn't quite get down to that time, that was the official time. So going around our second lap there, a 34.334, I felt really happy with this at this point. I wanted to try and get into the 33s in practice. Obviously, my last time I was here, my fastest lap was a 33.954, I believe, and that was in some damp conditions and not knowing the track at all and having to pick it up as quickly as possible. So having a little bit of extra practice, which I did also have before this is the 5 minutes of practice before our first heat. So we also, I think all drivers actually had 10 minutes of extra practice as well. So 50 minutes of practice in total, and we're just really trying to get on the pace as quickly as we possibly can and just get some good lap times in. So we can see straight away already down to a 34.06 second lap, which I was very happy with, and just really closing up to some of the other drivers ahead. Obviously I know some of them are SRK2, some of them are SRK1, but I was just really focused on myself, just trying to put in the best lap times that I could. So running wide here on this occasion and coming around, I believe that this was in fact the last lap we did. So very consistent there. Our fastest lap so far, 34.067, and our last lap at 34.084. So trying to really push the car as much as I can. I didn't push it quite as much as I think I could. I had a pretty decently good car in practice, and this gave me a lot of confidence going into the rest of the day. You see, going absolutely flat out under the bridge section and really trying to maximise the track before swinging into the last sort of hairpin before the last corner coming down the corkscrew. So here, sort of forcing the cart forward a little bit as we come across the line, with our last lap being a 34.150. So here we are then, jumping into our first heat of the day. I was really excited, starting in 3rd position as I mentioned, and the lights go out and we're going to jump straight into the action straight away. You can see the driver up ahead, Steve, he's in the same team as me in Herefordshire Racing, so I was really willing to work with him just to see if we could try and get past the driver in first. The driver in first place was an SRK1 driver, so I thought if we could really work together and try and make a move on him, we would be in for a very good shed load of points, if you could say that. So coming up to the first couple of corners here, I was keeping a little bit of distance to Steve. I didn't want to go barreling into the back of him, but I knew through the times in practice that I had a little bit more pace. So there you can see immediately going a little bit too hot into the second hairpin, giving him a little bit of a bump in the back, and it caused him to look over his shoulder a bit. So I didn't want him to start going defensive and holding each other up, so I just kept sticking behind him, following his lines. Obviously over my shoulder was another SRK1 driver, as you can see there right on cue, looking over my shoulder. I actually had Jen Tompkins on hot on my heels, so I didn't want to let her pass or compromise myself trying to have a little bit of a battle with Steve. Obviously we're sort of on the same team, so I didn't really want to ruin his race at all. You can see I've lost a little bit of pace there, backed off a little bit, taking a little bit of the wrong lines there. I think I was under pressure from Jen a little bit, and just still trying to get used to this car a bit compared to the first one I used in practice. You can see Steve going a little bit wide there. I was looking to capitalise, but unfortunately I was a bit too far back, and the car I was using here, the brakes were completely different, and I found that it had very little bottom end speed, so I couldn't really get the acceleration out of the car that I wanted to, and this obviously caused the drivers ahead of me to sort of pull away a bit more, especially through the hairpin section. You can see how much I'm sliding into the corners, and to my surprise Steve goes really wide here and actually gifts me the position up into second place, which I didn't expect. And now at this point I was just really hoping that I could hold on to this position and maybe even try and push forward and catch up with the person that was racing off into the distance. There's a big gap made already. I ran a bit wide there, go over the drain covering, which disrupts the car as well, but we come across the line there on our last lap, being a 34.601 second lap. Now obviously due to this being a sprint format, I knew that it wasn't a very long race, so I knew I didn't have a lot of time to really catch up, or even a lot of time to hang on if I had someone lurking over my shoulder, which unfortunately on this occasion Jen was right on my heels, so she actually managed to get past Steve. I was hoping Steve would hold her off for a little bit, give me a little bit of chance to sort of escape and find a little bit of a path of my own, but I just sort of felt a little bit of pressure here, and this caused me to just take a few of the wrong lines. However, on that lap we come across the line with a 34.017 second lap, which was a really quick lap. I was really happy with that. That was around the average pace for the day, so I knew that if I could stay on this and stay on track, then second place would be secured. Going a little bit too far over to the right hand side there onto the grass, losing a bit of momentum, that obviously slows the car down. You don't really want to go off track too much, staying to the right as much as you can before swinging it into the hairpin there, just to try and maximise your exit coming up the slight incline before the downward corkscrew. And we come across the line on this lap, obviously a little bit slower, a few mistakes in there, a 34.284 second lap, and again you can see me looking over my shoulders. I knew that Jen was right behind me at this point. Obviously you can't see her just yet because my camera only points in one direction and she's not close enough for me to be looking over my shoulder. You can see though I've gone in a little bit too hot there on the second hairpin, caused me to collide with the barrier a little bit. Obviously the pressure sort of looming over me, and this obviously just allows Jen to feed off this and sort of catch up behind me. So coming through the second half of the lap here, still a little bit off the pace here, but we come across the line once again, a 34.067 second lap, and again just going a little bit too tight there. I think I was doing that as a more defensive option. You can see me sticking a little bit more to the middle of the track now at this point, but I still couldn't figure out the brakes in this car, and it just was causing me to slide going into the first hairpin, which is something I didn't want to do. You can see Jen, the edge of her cart there, just sort of lurking around on the inside line there, and I knew that I had to drive a little bit more defensively here, taking a few more of narrow lines. Now I was looking over my shoulders an awful lot, and obviously when you're doing that you're not fully concentrating on the track ahead of you, and that is reflected in the lap times. One of our slowest laps so far, a 34.517 second lap, and looking over both shoulders once again, really just trying to make sure that I get the cart turned in correctly. Again, just not really maximising the use of the brakes very well, and it just means that the back end of the cart was sliding out, and it's just all this time I'm just losing through doing this. It's just not the best sort of racing for myself, but again I'm just trying to hit every apex I possibly can and just try and maintain my position, as I didn't want to leak down and sort of get stuck behind her and then maybe even drop a few more positions. So we come across the line there, a 34.250, and unfortunately I did just leave the door open a little bit too wide, and she comes barreling down the inside. I was looking for a little bit of a way back here. I didn't want to sort of sit back in third and accept it, so I was trying to look for a way back past, but obviously third place is still a very respectable finishing position for someone in the SRK2 category like myself. So I was just trying to, at this point, stick to the back of her car and just try and follow her behind and not really allow anyone else behind me to try and make a bit of a move. But at this point I think we had created a little bit of a gap for ourselves, so I was just trying to assess the situation and react accordingly. So here you can see once again just not really getting the drive around the first corner, and that caused me to lose a little bit more time, and our last lap was in fact our slowest lap so far, 34.768 second lap. And here you can see really closing up through the second hairpin there, but just not getting the drive that I want, and it's not really allowing me to look for a move or any way past. So instead here just really trying to close up behind. You can see almost touching distance now at this point as I'm really motoring on the back of her car. But as we come down the corkscrew, as I mentioned, it was short heats, and we do come across the line with our fastest lap of the session at 34.000, 34 dead. But really happy with that result, a really solid start to the day, very respectful racing, really enjoyed it, and I was just really hoping to carry this forward into the next two heats. So let's see how we get on in those. Jumping straight into the second heat here, you can see we're starting in 12th place as I mentioned, and I was really looking to build on our first heat's result of third position. Now starting in 12th, there's not really anywhere else we can go other than forwards or stay in the same place, so not much to lose here, and I was really looking to try and pounce on this opportunity from the off. So straight up the inside on the first corner, up into 11th place immediately, and pushing through Oliver Payne up ahead of me in the McLaren suits, try and get ahead of my pro teammate there, Aiden, on the outside to try and nick a 10th place off him. But unfortunately I thought I would use him more as a battering ram, so I decided to sit behind him and wait for him to make a move. You can see that I went for a little look down the inside, but instead thought better of it, and I'm glad I did, because Aiden went straight into the side of someone there. A little bit of a car park going on as I'm now up into 10th position, so 2 positions gained after essentially half a lap. I was really happy with this, and unfortunately here I went down the inside following Oliver through, and I just did get caught on Finn Williams's kart there as he was wide in the barrier and just sort of tried to turn back on the track. So a little bit of a racing incident there. I got pushed onto the grass, a little bit disappointed as I lost the 3 positions I essentially gained there in the first lap, and I was back down into 12th where I started. I wasn't going to let this get me down though, as I was just really trying to force my way back up and try and get back into the action. You can see already within half a lap or a lap we've already caught back up to the other guys, where they're all having a big old tussle with one another. So right on the back of the others once again, back into 12th and looking to make as many moves as I can as quickly as I possibly can. So realistically I've taken a lap off of my heat where I can gain positions. So here you can see the driver ahead of me there just going a little bit wide and really allowing me the position up into 11th place, so back up +1 position from where we started. You can see Finn going for a move on Oliver down up ahead, and I knew as these two were battling I was looking to pounce on any opportunities they were going to give me. I had a little bit of a tap in the back there, look over my shoulder, and this is just a little bit of where I was just trying to focus as much as I can and just try and gain as much time as I can. And I felt that this kart was a lot better than the kart I used in the first heat. I felt I had a lot more power, a lot more traction, and the brakes felt a lot better as well. And you can see that in the lap times immediately coming down to a 34.267 second lap. And we go right down the inside there of Oliver there, making a nice clean move, tapping the back of Finn on the way through, but we're up into 10th place once again and looking to try and capitalise on anything else happening up ahead. A little bit of a throw up of a hand, a little bit of complaining. I was more complaining at myself there for making a silly move, and as Finn goes wide there, I actually see him leave the gap open, and that allows me right back up into 9th place, which I was really happy with. Now I could sense that the driver ahead was feeling a little bit of pressure from the other guys behind me, so I was just looking to capitalise as quickly as I could and really undercutting him now with a nice little switchback move. And he starts turning right into me on a straight. You can see I'm literally drifting down the back straight, which I was really confused about, and as I'm coming into this corner as well I took a huge shunt from behind, which I was a little bit confused about. I didn't know what was really going on there, but I moved up into 8th place at this point. I was really happy, and now I have my eyes set on the other 2 drivers, or the other drivers, sorry, not 2 drivers, there's another 7 ahead of me that I was just trying to hunt down and make as good a position as I possibly could by the end of the heat. So I've already gained 4 places, I had some decent points, and I was hungry for some more. I could see that the drivers up ahead, there's a group of 3 of them there, and Aiden's gone past the two other drivers up ahead of me, so I knew that there were some more points on offer. You can see them having a battle, and every single bit of scrapping that was going on was just allowing me to close up as close as I could. So through the second to last corner here, really getting tight on the apex and running wide onto the runoff, just so I can carry as much speed through the corner as I can, and also doing the same through the corkscrew corner. And we come across the line on this lap with a 34.134 second lap, so not our fastest lap so far. Our fastest lap in this heat was a 33.9 dead, which I was really happy with, really on the pace at this point. And you can see the driver in head just going a little bit slow into these two hairpins here, and this has really allowed me to catch up to the back of them, tag onto their bumper. I created a bit of a gap for myself at this point to the drivers behind, which I was really happy with. I gave him a little bit of bump there. I didn't expect him to brake going into the corner. I could have looked for the move down the inside, but I didn't want to be penalised for advantage by contact, or ABC as it's known. So I decided to ease off the pressure there and sort of just decide to follow him through as well, obviously losing a little bit of time, trying to go for another bit of a switchback move, but unfortunately I didn't quite carry the momentum through. He moves over to the left here, and I seized my opportunity just to dive down the inside, and it was a really good move there. I hit the barriers on the exit, I moved back to the inside of the track, and I just get spun around. Now, viewer discretion, I'm going to try and speak over this as loud as I can in case there is any bad language, but at this point we decided to have a little bit of a picnic. Obviously not too impressed at this point, sat on the grass, not much more I can commentate on at this point. I made a nice 5 positions there. I was up into 7th place, and unfortunately I am now in 12th, a lap down, being towed off the grass by the marshal, which was a bit of a recipe for things to come. I wanted to try and get back on track as quickly as I could, but unfortunately, due to safety, I had to wait for everyone to go past. So a lap down behind everyone at this point, and I knew that this heat was sort of in the mud. I wasn't too disheartened at this point because obviously I started in 12th, so not much more I could have lost from starting in 12th and finishing 12th. But at the end of the day, I was still rather annoyed. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the incident, that was a racing incident allegedly, so no penalties given out to anyone there, so I was stuck in 12th place, and at this point we're sort of trundling around, just finishing out the heat. You can see I'm not too impressed at this point. I did have my eyes set on some of the guys ahead, but even if I caught up to them, it wouldn't really have meant a lot. So at the end of the day, it was just a bit of a run around at this point, just to try and get on the pace, get my head cleared, because I know when I came off on this heat, I really wasn't too happy with what happened. So I was just trying to come around here on the last few corners, just trying to run in as close as I can. You can see I've already caught up to the others, but unfortunately the checkered flag had been dropped. So that was the end of this heat for me. So let's see how we get on in our last one. Now, if I'd learned anything from the last round at Castle Combe, I knew to keep a clear head going into the third and final heat of the day. I came into this quite calm actually, whereas in the first round at Castle Combe I would have come into this round absolutely seething. So I was just knew I had 5th position here on the grid, and I was going to use Neil Durant here as a little bit of a battering ram to try and get through. Obviously he is the defending champion in SRK, so I knew if I could stick up behind him, then I would be on for a good result. So sticking up behind him here, you can see he's looking for a little bit of a move on Shane Lucas up ahead, but he decides against it, and I thought I'd be a little bit cheeky here and go for a bit of an outside perspective on that corner. Instead, it really was the start of my downfall in this heat as well. Oliver Payne goes up the inside me there and takes the position off me, so I'm down into 6th place. I've leaked a position already. I thought about a move back on him there, but decided against him, and instead got a really good run going up and into the corkscrew, and was able to just sort of shove my way down the inside there and take the position back. So up into 5th once again, back into the position where I started from, which I was really happy with. But again, just going a little bit too wide into the first corner, much like I did with Jen in the first heat, and this allows all of us to go back down the inside. And from that, Seb and another driver have also managed to go down the inside. I'm now stuck in a little bit of a car park, and Seb here just goes for a very unorthodox move to get ahead of me. I was a bit confused about that one. So but up into 7th place I go, and unfortunately once again around I go. So down into 12th place once again. I'm going to speak quite loudly here. You can see clearly not happy with what's just happened, and I did just get spun round by essentially my teammates. See me pointing at the other drivers there from the marshal's point of view. I just been spun around, taken out, gone from 6th or 7th right back down to 12th. So at this point I was pretty much seeing red. I wasn't in the best frame of mind now, especially after the second heat as well. and I was just trying to make up as many positions as I can. Now, I was a bit confused by that incident, as no drivers actively got a penalty for that, or no drivers other than me got a penalty in this race, and you will see later in the heat why that was. But coming around here, I was coming up behind Oliver once again, trying to just regain some of the positions that I'd lost. I didn't want to be stuck in last. I don't think it was a true reflection on the pace I was showing on the day. So we come across the line there, 34.401, our fastest lap so far, and our only clean lap so far. And again, just really trying to catch up to the guys in front of me. You can see Oliver going a little bit sideways here, and this viewer discretion is where I pulled off a very diabolical move. I've just tried to go down the inside there of Oliver, and unfortunately I've absolutely sent him into the barriers. Now, that wasn't my intention, I didn't mean to, and Oliver, I know you're going to watch this. I've apologised to you already, but I would like to apologise once more. I felt really bad about it. It really wasn't the best thing I could have done, and I just feel so guilty. I'm so glad that you're actually okay, because what happened, you could have come out a lot worse. So there were red flags here, and luckily Oliver was able to rejoin at the back of the grid. We had a grid restart and we started again. Obviously, due to that little bit of a collision there, we were actually given a 4-place penalty. Now, I didn't realise this till after the heat, but in my mind I just wanted to gain as many positions as I can. So once again, much like in the second heat, barrelling down the inside up into 10th place. Oliver looking for a move past me once again, but luckily I was able to hold the position in 10th place and up behind the driver ahead, who actually was a driver who spun me out earlier in the second heat. So I really wanted to try and get past him as quickly as I could. You can see lurking up the inside here, looking for a way past. I decided against a big dive bomb. I didn't really want to cause any more collisions. I already caused one in this heat, and obviously not having the best day myself. You can see Thomas Wilshire there going down the inside. He lets me have the position back. He thought that was a bit of a reckless move. I would have been easy game to let him keep it, but there you go. We were up into 10th once again, and just really trying to make as many positions up as we could. So here we can see once again coming down, bearing on the back of the driver up ahead, and we come across the line on that lap of 35.185, obviously due to our momentum being taken out there. And again, just going a bit wide. The driver tries to go down the inside there on the first corner, and that causes me to just get knocked and just lose my momentum going down the back straight. And again, just gaining all the time back through the 2 hairpins, which I was really happy with. Looking over my shoulders, I knew I was under a bit of pressure, but I wasn't going to let that stop me from making moves. Shane Lucas there going a little bit wide, and I was able to squeeze up into 9th place. And I looked for a move down the inside there, decided against it, back out and stay down in 9th place. So looking over my shoulders once again, you can see that I was a bit confused. The driver was given a penalty board, but no one actually was given a penalty after I checked later in the day. So here you can see once again, really closing up to the driver ahead. I knew that I could gain at least 1 or 2 more positions, and here I just take a really clean line down the inside, have a little bit of contact with Mr. Frankham up ahead of me, but I was able to slip down the inside of the driver that I was overtaken without making any contact. I was up into 8th place and trying to catch up to the driver ahead of me as well. So down up into 8th place at this point, gone from 12th to 8th. Well, essentially gone from 5th to 8th, so only lost 3 positions so far, but at this point I didn't realise I had a 4-position penalty. So essentially at this point I was down in 12th still, so I was just trying to tag along, gain any more positions if I could. But at this point I realised with the disjointed nature of this heat, we were coming towards the end, and I didn't know if this was the second to last or last lap. I was closing up on Ben Frankham up ahead of me, but unfortunately I just think it was a little bit too little too late. And you can see here I'm really closing up, especially going through the corkscrew here. You can see the back end of this car goes all over the place, and this allows me to tag up a bit closer. But we do come across the line to the checkered flag with a 33.917, which is a really good time, but unfortunately it wasn't the result I wanted. So with the day we've had, we are starting in 10th position for the D final. Now, in other circumstances we could have been starting in 10th position in the B final, but this is the cards we've been dealt, so let's see how we get on. Now, at this point I had a nice talk with Oliver and we sort of hashed things out. He said it was a 50-50 sort of move. I said it was entirely my fault, and I'm really going to hold my hands up to that, and I'm going to keep saying that throughout the video because I just do feel really bad. But jumping and moving aside from that, jumping into the footage you are seeing, I really wanted to just try and make as many positions as I can. I didn't think that 10th in the D final was a true reflection on myself, and trying not to caused the same sort of thing that happened in the first round of SRK, where I took out my team boss Barry Lewis. I instead went for a nice clean move up the inside this time. I think he had a bit of a dog cart in this one, so that was an easy position to make, straight up into 9th on the first lap, which I was really happy with. Now up ahead is Barney Williams, another person who is on my team. He's actually in the pro team, so I was a bit confused why he was down in this final. I think he had a bit of a rotter of a day as well, so I was just trying to almost work with him to just try and get past or try and catch up with some of the other guys up ahead. Obviously George Braun's up ahead of him, and I know that he's a very quick SRK2 driver as well, so if I could catch up with him, I knew I was on for a very good race. And you can see how much time I'm managing to gain through the chicane sections as the drivers up ahead are all battling. It was a nice race here. It was a nice big train, a lot of clean racing, and I just really wanted to get involved, get mixy, and just try and get as many positions as I could, if I'm honest. So I really had my head down. I had, obviously, as I said, I'd had a little refresh from the heats, and I wasn't driving angry. I was trying to be as calm as I possibly could and try and make some nice clean moves that really showcase my actual skills rather than sort of showing what's happened so far. So Barney here goes into the back of the train, and I'm following along behind him, I meant to say, and unfortunately I just hit the brakes a little bit too hard there going into the second half, and that caused me to lose a couple of kart lengths on him, so I had to rebuild the gap that I'd lost going into the next lap again through the corkscrew, running wide, just trying to maintain as much momentum as I can. Coming out of that corner, we come across the line on this lap at 34.918 second lap, which obviously isn't a very fast lap at all, but I knew with all the racing that was going on, the lap times were going to be a bit down in this final. So Barney here goes nice and slow, and I just decided to chance myself, and I actually slid right up inside and pulled off a really clean move, no contact into the second hairpin. I was really happy with that one, especially on a pro driver, SRK1, so I was able to get up into 8th place, and now have my eyes set on George Braun and Mark O'Grady up ahead. I knew that they were teammates, so I thought they'd be working together, so I gave Barney a little tap on my helmet to say let's work together and try and catch up to the back of this pack. Now to my surprise, George had some other plans for his teammate Mark O'Grady, going right up the inside there and flicking him with the back of his car. Mark wasn't very happy with this. I accidentally go right into the back of Mark by carrying a bit too much momentum there. I didn't mean to go barreling in behind him, but here I was just trying to look and see if I could sort of capitalise in the same sort of way. Obviously Mark's not on my team, so I'm looking to gain up any positions that I possibly can. Obviously I didn't want to let George sort of race off into the distance either, so still up into 8th place. We gained 2 positions so far in this heat, which I was reasonably happy with, but I knew there was more to come. So you can see Mark, I don't know what happened there, he just went a little bit wayward, and sort of 1 lap later, the same move that George made, I just slipped up the inside as well. Tried not to make as much contact and actually managed to sneak up into 7th place, and now I have my eyes set once more on George up ahead of me. You can see he's sort of trying to catch up to some of the other drivers up ahead, and as I come around the corner I just see my teammate Goose, or Mr. Sam Oakley, gets absolutely wiped out there by Tom Avery, which gave him a penalty. So I was up into 6th place, which was essentially 5th place I believe at this point, obviously due to him having a 2-place penalty. So now I was up into 5th on paper, but on track I'm still in 6th place, and I knew that me and George had a bit more pace than Tom, so really just trying to catch up and hope that if George tries to make a move, I can keep up close enough where I'd be able to follow him through and sort of give him a little bit of a battle. So at this point I was trying to get in some quick lap times just to try and push myself up as close to the pack as I could. So here you can see George having a little battle with Tom. He's looking down the outside, which changes to the inside for the first corner, but he backs out of it, and we come across the line with a 34.184, fastest lap so far. Now here in this position I gave Tom a little bit of a little bump draft into the corner, but unfortunately he just brakes early. I was hoping that he would sort of follow through. He didn't really enjoy my little tap on the exit of the corner, and he instead just goes barreling into George, which I didn't really understand what was going on there. He was complaining a lot there, which I was a bit confused about. In hindsight, I should have gone up the inside of George there. I gave him a little bit too much respect. I should have capitalised on the open gap that he gave me, but instead we are still down in 6th place. Now there you can see Tom's been given another penalty, and I think I was given a little bit of a warning there for bumping into the back of Tom, but it was all par for the course, especially braking or going really slow coming out of the exit of the corner. There's not much more I can do on a tight track. Now I can see George here trying to go down the inside. I look for the switchback on George, but he just manages to get enough momentum to close the gap. You can see our lap times are being absolutely destroyed at this point, and the people in the top 3 positions have absolutely raced off. Sam Oatley goes for a move down the inside, but decides to give me it back, as he did completely run me off course. And unfortunately, it was the complete wrong timing, because this is the opportune moment where George was going to go for a move on Tom up ahead, and if I was a bit closer and if that contact didn't happen, I probably would have been able to follow him through. I could see that Tom was on a bit of tilt at this point, so it was only a matter of time before he made a little bit of a mistake and I would be able to capitalise on it. So here through these corners, really closing up behind him, trying to get him to go all over the place, trying to get him to go narrow coming into this corner so I can get a better run coming out of the under the bridge section, but unfortunately I didn't quite get the drive I was looking for, and you can see already from the defending this going on how much time George has been able to make. Now I was going to try and slide side by side down here, but it's a bit late to try and go for a move, so instead I tried to pin Tom to the inside of the corner and try and go for another switchback, but he parks it quite well here. And now I was looking to try and force him quite narrow so I could try and go for a bit of a switchback. So here you can see getting a really good run and then trying to brake early so I can get the turn in. But unfortunately I just wasn't able to get back on the power again. You can see Tom up ahead complaining, but as we're on the exit of the corner, I don't really think it could be constituted as loading. As we're coming out of the corner, I'm not really trying to get by pushing him out of the way. It's just the momentum that my kart was having from the lines I was taking. Again, you can see here really gaining a lot of time down the straight, almost pushing him down the start finish straight. You can see how tight he's going. I look for the little gap there up the inside, but unfortunately it wasn't coming. You see another hand thrown up, which I was a bit confused about. There's always going to be a bit of bumping in kart racing this closest, and you can see here it goes really narrow, and I was looking for the inside. I get loaded in the back, which obviously consequently hits me into the back of him, so a bit of pinball going on. I'm still down in 6th looking for a way past. Obviously at this point I am in 5th, but I did want to try and race George, but you can see how much of a gap he's actually managed to pull. He's pretty much a speck in the distance, and to my surprise there, Tom goes a little bit wayward into the corner, and this allows me to just swoop around the outside and take the position off him up into 5th. But unfortunately, I think this overtake was a little bit too little too late. You can see George has almost caught up to the top 3, who are large majority of the track ahead now at this point, and I knew that 5th was sort of where I was going to finish. So as we come around the last few laps here, I was really happy with the 5 places I was able to make up. I was looking for a few more, but unfortunately starting in 10th, it's really difficult to really try and push your way through that many karts when everyone's trying to defend their position. So at this point, just wanted to try and get some quick laps in, try and catch up as much as I can. See immediately as we've been released from being defended against, we've gone up to a 34.134 second lap, which I'm really happy with, back on the pace of where we have been all day. And I was looking to go even faster here if I could, trying to get really tight to that second apex, missing a little bit of the corner that I probably could have got a little bit closer to, and again just trying to go as flat out as I can under the bridge to try and get as close as I can through the next few corners and down the corkscrew, just lifting off a little bit to try and get the kart rotated and going over the side of the track there to carry the momentum. We come across the line on this lap with 34.407, so a few mistakes in that one, obviously leading to not the best lap time. You can see George there on the right hand side, he's really caught up to the others, so I think with a few more laps I probably would have been able to catch up as well, but unfortunately I was just a little bit too far behind at this point, and I was just unable to catch up some of the other guys that were battling for the top 4 positions. So again, just really trying to hit all my apexes, hitting the barriers as well as I'm pushing the kart to its absolute limit at this point. And as we come around the final corner there, we come across the line for 5th place in the D final, which I was quite happy with the positions I gained up. But in the meantime, I'm going to cut away to an outro that I'm doing a couple of days later as I record this. Okay then guys, so we're just cutting to this sort of section of the video. I was hoping to do a vlog sort of while I was there and at the event, but unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier in the video, some of the footage was accidentally deleted by myself, and also as I was recording an outro at the track, my camera literally died midway through, which I was really annoyed about, but I just wanted to hop in and say a few things at the end. Now I am filming this on the Tuesday, so it's a couple of days after I've had a little bit of time to reflect, review my footage. I've reviewed it an awful lot, so I just thought I'd jump in. So the first heat I was really happy with. We actually moved from 3rd to 2nd, and obviously Steve had a little bit of a mistake, and this allowed me just to secure 2nd place for a large majority of the race. Unfortunately, I did leave the gap open just allowing Jen to slot down the inside on the first corner. Now, I can put that down to anything that I want, but at the end of the day, I think it was just a little bit of a lack of experience and a lapse of concentration from myself, just allowing her to slide up the inside and obviously taking P2 off me. So I was still really happy to finish on the podium in that heat. I think I did an amazing job just to hold position and sort of maintain that gap. The second heat, I've looked at the footage a couple times, and I think the way that I was spun out on the hairpin, sort of the same reason, a little bit of lack of experience. I've sort of moved across a little bit too far to the right and not really allowed enough space for the two drivers that are behind me. Obviously, in the heat of the moment, I blamed everyone else apart from myself. Obviously, it's in my nature to do so. I'm a racing driver. It's what I'm going to do. But looking at the footage, I think it is borderline mostly my fault, obviously, just moving across a bit too much, trying to get a better exit on out of the second hairpin, and that's just led to the karts behind me just sort of tagging my rear end and sending me round. In the third heat, a heat that I probably want to forget as quickly as possible, the first collision, that really wasn't my fault, just being completely taken out and onto the grass. Not onto the grass, sorry, just spun around on track. I just wasn't too happy about that, and I think that was sort of the tip of the iceberg for me in terms of my mental state for the day. Obviously, being taken out in the second heat, I thought I did a lot better this time compared to Castle Coombe, where I sort of carried through that anger into each of the other heats and races that I did. Obviously, in the first round, we sort of went for a move on Barry, which really wasn't on, and sort of ended my race and also his. So a little bit of a better time this time, sort of had a refresh, but I really was seething after I was taken out. And obviously the move on Oliver, we'll settle that in the comments down below. We'll have a little bit of a debate. I think that after speaking to him, it was a bit of a 50-50 racing incident. Obviously, you can take from that what you want. I think the move was on, and I think it was just a really difficult position to be in, because I think as he's turned to the right sort of counter steer, the kart's just fully gripped up and he's just looked like I've sent him flying off the track. But if you see in the footage, I don't make that much contact. I don't think it was a malicious move. But on that subject, I would just like to apologise to you, Oliver, once again. I know you keep telling me to stop apologising, but I would like to apologise to you, because obviously I would never want to seriously hurt anyone or harm anyone while racing. That's the last thing I want to do. So I apologise once again, and I'm just glad you're okay and was even able to carry on racing. That's the main thing at the end of the day. We all want to do something that we enjoy. And moving into the final, I thought I had an excellent final race then, D final. I was a bit upset. I think that with the pace I was carrying throughout the day, I probably would have had enough for the B final and could have got some really solid points, finishing on the podium or even first in SRK2 for the category. But unfortunately, we were down in D final, and I think I made some really good, clean moves to just push from 10th up to 5th. I mean, starting in 10th place, I was never going to get promoted into the C final, especially with some of the other drivers that were just able to bolt off from the beginning. Obviously, the top three were able to break away, as there was a lot of sort of battling in the midfield. So that's sort of my summary that I wanted to just add in at the end. Obviously, I wanted to do a couple of vlogs throughout the event, but unfortunately, as I mentioned, I just sort of messed up a bit, which is what it is. But if you've watched this far into the video, I would just like to say thank you very much. I do appreciate every single one of you, and I can't thank you enough for following me on my journey. At the end of the day, as I've said to a few of you over on Instagram, I do use this YouTube channel as sort of my own personal diary. I do look back on my own footage, and I just want to learn and be as best a race driver as I possibly can. So if you haven't already, could you please hit the subscribe button down below, as it really does help me, and I'm planning to do bigger and better things in the future too. Obviously, our next race is at Rye House in about 2 or 3 weeks for the weekend series of Club 73, which I'm really excited for, and the third and fourth round of the SRK Championship is actually held at Formula Fast. It's a double header. I'm really excited for that as well. So if you did enjoy the video, could you please hit a like down below as well, as it really does help me out. If you didn't enjoy the video, you could also hit a down vote as well. It's absolutely fine. But anyways, I hope you guys are well. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.